In the darkest nights, we find our light, battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey guys, how's it going?
In the darkest nights,
I started the intro all over again. Sorry about that, guys. Hold on a second. Okay, if you can't tell, I'm a little harried. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to postpone our hey Deaudrey, hey Crystal, Nisha, welcome. Glad to see you. Trying to keep this up. Shannon and I already spoke to her because I know she is going to bed. Saturday, I promise Saturday we are going to talk about psilocybin and depression. I had a major significant incident happen to my ex. It's been a few days. I'm emotionally shot. Still a little bit in shock. And I think I forgot to announce where we are. It's Surviving Together, guys. Not like that's like a new thing or whatever. I am committed to not letting my life get in the way of this channel and what I do for this channel. And that is my absolute goal between now and the end of forever, is to not miss a live, not to miss a topic if I'm going to be speaking about that, if I said I was going to be. This latest, Deaudrey, yes, my son is fine as it stands now. It only directly affected my ex and his wife. I'm trying to find out some more information today. I haven't been able to, so we'll just wait and see what happens then. And just need to figure out a few details and fill in a few holes of some information that I'm not certain on. So instead of that, I did have a couple of things that I wanted to just bring up. One of them, and I'll speak about it second, is an old news story. It's probably, I think, about 12 years old, maybe 15, something like that. And it just struck me again, going, I understand when I was a kid, and some of the millennials are saying, I could understand when I was a kid. And now we're going, this is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, third grade. So, not quite, wouldn't be quite my son's age at this point in time, these kids. So I'm going to talk about that second. But hey, Mark, Misha, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. It does, life does get in the way sometimes, and that you guys are all here for me and are supporting me no matter what, even though I've had a few times, obviously, now that I've had to cut things short or postpone. I don't like it when I do. Hey, Janet, good to see you. I know that you're busy with things, so please, we'll connect later too, if you missed this. So the first thing, and this is way off topic and has nothing to do with our, well, no, I guess you could liken it. Okay, so here's the deal. Everybody knows who John Hinckley Jr. is, correct? Does anybody not know who John Hinckley Jr. is? Let's put it that way. That would be more for my non-US friends, because I'm pretty sure Misha knows, and I'm pretty sure Janet knows. Crystal, Mark, you don't know? Okay, so this is the gentleman in the late 70s, I believe. Yeah, because shortly thereafter, Reagan won the 1980 election. So this is the guy who shot Ronald Reagan, wounded William Brady, and a couple of other people, a Secret Service guy, and I think a local policeman or whatever, an assassination attempt, because he wanted to impress Jodie Foster. So, Little Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is what the jury said, and he was sent to a psych hospital, and he eventually did okay, and he got out of the psych hospital. I think he was sentenced to like 81 or something. It took quite a while for the trial to come, but it was like the OJ trial. It was the trial of the century at that point in time. Hey, Mayonnaise, how you doing? Um, Now you know who he is? Yeah. Um, so eventually, and this I did know, it kind of jingled some bells, but I just thought he'd fade into the woodwork. He was eventually given unconditional release. Um, so he is now just amongst the population. Originally, it was to live with his mother, but his mother has now passed. So that's when he had to get the unconditional release, so he could still, apparently, I think he's still staying in his mother's home. Um, they passed on to him, type of thing, to where, but he is a YouTuber, guys, and he makes music, and he has a pretty decent following for being an ex almost murderer, trying to assassinate the president of the United States. With the thing I was listening to said like 20,000 people. I don't know how many he has now, but it made me wonder. And some of the questions that the moderator was talking about, it's not so much that somebody, gets a second chance. Hi guys, I got kicked off. All of a sudden it said, oops, something's gone wrong with StreamYard. Try again. So sorry about that, guys. Nope, it had nothing to do with me or my stuff. As far as I know, I've just been sitting here. It's like, check your internet connection. I'm like, whoa, okay. No, in general, no. I was just like, how do we get back in? Um, so anyway, I was saying, and in some ways, this it does have to deal with second chances. I would imagine the family of Reagan and Brady and the two other police officers who were hit. Nobody died from their injuries, which was good. Um, but James Brady, James Brady. He was paralyzed for the rest of his life and had to use a wheelchair. He was shot in the head. And I'm sure all those families would have something to say about him being released unconditionally. Some might have, bye, Deaudrey, no problem. And we'll try and see you on Saturday. Get some sleep. Some of them may be in favor of it, and others may have some choice words for it and not believe that he should be, out and trying to further a music career on YouTube. And oh, you'll watch till you get sleepy. Guess okay, got it. If your abuser got out and was trying to lead a good life, think of Tommy on the lifeboat, a thief, a bank robber, in order to fuel a heroin addiction, did a lot of bad things to a lot of people. He's been given a second chance by a whole lot of people to prove that he's a different person now. Could you forgive that person? Believe that that person deserved that second chance? It's a tough question when you turn it around and put it in terms of abusers. There is a special violation when it is a personal violation like that. So it got me thinking about that, because I know that we often kick and scream about some of the sentences that are handed down and that they're very light. When I think of even some of the harshest ones, unless they're getting 25 to life, which I'm fully in favor of in most cases, they're going to get out. They are going to get out one day, and you hope that the outcome is that they don't do it again. But what if you saw them on YouTube doing a music career, trying to do 20,000 people following? It certainly would hit you in the gut, and it's one of those things. I see most of you are saying in favor of second chances. It's just a matter if he's not dangerous or anymore. And that's such a tough one, isn't it? Because I think depending on the person, even the best psychiatrist or psychologist can be fooled. There are people who are just that good. Now, is that the majority of the population? No, I don't think so. But is it more than we know? I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. Oh, yeah. Karla Homolka in Canada, that was, she was, for you guys who don't know, she was part of a team, and she said that she was coerced and then got Stockholm syndrome type of thing, whereas there's definitely pieces of the puzzle that indicate that no, she was a willing participant, and even an instigator of some things. So, oh, and she's out. That's why you said that. Yeah. So it's yeah, her little sister ended up getting killed, and there's indications that she was actively part of that. Uh, and your childhood abuser has children, you pray that he has changed. Me too. Me too. And, I hope and pray for every child, every abuser who was a child when they were an abuser. Because as sure as I'm sitting here, there's a reason why they thought to do it. And they either saw something they shouldn't have, or were told something they shouldn't have, something happened to them. They just don't come up with these things on their own. Unless I would say somebody is a, 11, 12-year-old and is very off, then I could see where it might be all their own idea. But otherwise, those people I do pray have a better adulthood, because I do feel that they were robbed twice of their childhood. I'm not absolving them of the abuse, but I guarantee they were abused somehow. And then for that to perpetuate with them, for them to heal from that, and try to come to terms with not only the fact that it happened to them, but that they did it to somebody else as a kid, oh boy, tough, right? Tough. Are you talking about Homoko? She was working as a teacher after she got out? What? I'm sorry, Canada. What the ever living F? Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Very much so, Misha. Very much so. And I don't know. She changed her name. Obviously, people know about it now. Did the school know who she was, though, when they hired her? That's what I want to know. Oh, she was volunteering at her kid's school. Still, you're supposed to have, well, at least here, we have to have background checks done on us before we can go in the school classroom, or even help staple papers in the front office. Wow. Oh, I bet they were up in arms because she was volunteering with their kids. I wouldn't want her around my kids. But again, here we're talking about second chances. By all indications, when she started her spree with her boyfriend, that was the first time she'd, ever been in trouble. And so the whole spree, and then she went to, prison. So being out now, married the brother of her attorney. It's one way to meet people. This is her second chance. So, I hope to goodness that she's making good on it, I guess that's all we can do if we want compassion to win out at the end of the day. I have many reasons to not like my husband's wife, but I am trying to have compassion win out in this situation and let any of my other issues stand by the wayside for right now and help support her as they are going through this process of aftermath. Yeah, Joseph Fritzl, he's trying to get released as he's healed. Bullshit. I'm sorry. You don't lock your daughter down in the basement for 24 years, have a gazillion kids with her, and then say, I'm healed after a couple dozen years or 10 years or however long it's been. No, I'm sorry. Just no. Oh, she cut the deal and got it sealed, signed, and delivered before the evidence against her was found. Sweetheart, wow. All I can say is I wouldn't marry her. I may be for second chances, but that's going to be from afar. Yeah, I'm not. It's a difficult question when it comes closer to home, isn't it? If that person married into your family, how would you feel? You know, it just is. Hey, Cosmic, how are you doing? Sending love to you. I hope you're doing well. I agree with you, Deidre. Um, I think he should be kept somewhere very dark and dank for the rest of his life. Although I will say this, and this is the only thing I'm going to ever say on capital punishment, is I have a real love-hate relationship with it. One is the moral, where do I stand on the moral side? But the other is just a strict financial side. And some of these people, I'm sorry, are they worth the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we end up spending on them to house them and feed them and give them basic necessities of being able to live? There's a piece of me that has a real hard time with that. Oh, Cosmic, I'm so jealous. I'm going to make it to Australia one of these days. It's on my bucket list, and I will make it. I'm committed. And then I'm going to New Zealand, or maybe I'll go there first. Oh, God, I'm so jealous. Well, I hope you're doing well, Cosmic, and hope being by the beach is therapeutic. I know listening to the waves, I could sit out and just listen to the waves for hours and hours and hours on end. Misha, if this subject is, irritating you too much, please, definitely triggering you, please step away. Step away. I have been contemplating for a while now. I think I had mentioned North Fox Island to you guys. It's just a place where horrendous child abuse occurred. And there's now been a few other things that just they come up, and I don't want to focus on the abuser. I want to focus on the kids or whoever is the survivors of the abuser. And what does this tell us? So if anybody needs to step away for this, it's going to be dealing with children in the third grade. I'm going to try to use as innocuous language as possible. This isn't, I'm not going to get too into depth with details or anything. But I think the storyline that occurs is critical to talk about on two different levels. And so I think I'm going to have a playlist where I will be speaking about these things, whether I decide to have them live and tag it up front, or just do, a video on one. And then I'll keep it in a separate playlist, and that way people know what they're getting into, when they go into that playlist. Yeah, right, Mark? I mean, I know. So I say the moral part of you is, should we say we have to treat them better because we're better than them, you know? And, Misha, I understand that. I understand that too. Um, the killer is still here, and your daughter isn't. It's not an easy question. And even thinking in terms of that, just thinking in terms of second chances, if that person got out and totally turned his life around and 100%, and, it was 100% genuine, if there was a way that somebody could 100% verify that, yes, it's genuine, would we be able to have that kind of grace in our heart to forgive them for something like that? I don't know. If it was me, I don't know. If it was my child, I do not know. I'd like to think that eventually I could get to a place where I could, because that's healing, right? Getting rid of that anger, getting rid of that rage, getting rid of that hate and forgiving somebody is taking a load off of you and not allowing them to occupy that space anymore, right? So that's healing. But that'd be real hard. You can heal from a lot of stuff around it, but kind of doing that last, that's a big one. I might be able to reduce my emotion on it, but I'm not sure that the forgiveness, that would be definitely difficult. Yeah, I hear you, Mark. You hear about some of these people and what they've done, and it's just seriously, seriously. There's the House of Horrors in England. I forget exactly when that was discovered, but I remember when that came out. I was just listening to some Australian stories today. Yeah, I know, it's weird what I do in my spare time. And that's it, Misha, it's totally understandable to be upset at the system. We do not have a perfect system. Far from it, right? Now, the thing all about it is like, well, then fix it. How do you fix it? And that's where you get people who hopefully start coming up with better ideas as to how to do. Yes, Audrey, I do believe it was the Wests. It may. Did they kill them there? But yes, I know of the West. And, there's another pair where the wife would just do absolutely anything for the husband. And there was one I just listened to the other day, and they said, here, you can take this deal or you're going to go to prison for accessory. And we don't believe that, you actually were part of the killing part or whatever. And she went to prison. She wouldn't take the deal and testify against him. She loved him that much. She would do absolutely anything. That's where you go, oh wow, I hope she's getting a psychiatrist in prison. But they just they wrote thousands of letters to each other, and the prison system didn't let them have it because there was no contact order in between them. Odd, just odd. Oh, Crystal, I'm so sorry. But I'm glad in a way you get closure with that. At least you know. Oh, absolutely, Cosmic. I 100% agree with you, Christy. You know, it's like being anonymous online. It's easier to be angry at a system. It's an amorphous, non-human that there's no one place that's going to be pinpointing and taking the blame, right? So it's like being anonymous online and being able to say, whatever you want online. And, it's like the people who get online and basically are crying out for help and saying, I'm going to commit suicide. And then you have people in the comments who are like, well, do it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what kind of person does that? What kind of person says that? Guarantee if they were face to face with that person, they would not have said that. But of course, being behind the anonymity of this, yes, Rosemary and Fred West, weird, bizarre. She was definitely the "I do anything for you" wife as well. Just such a weird situation. Okay, well, switching gears. If this is triggering for you at all, please, please, please step out. This is going to happen sometime, right? This is gonna we're gonna deal with topics that aren't for you. So this guy's name was Mark Bent, Bendt, and this and shoot, I didn't write down the exact date, but I think it was around the 2000s. Well, no, if it was about 12 years ago, it would have been, I think it was about 10, 15 years ago, somewhere in there. Let's put it that way. And when he was caught, he had been working at the school for 30 years before he was caught. There was allegations years and years before he was caught that he was doing inappropriate things, touching, things of that nature. Audrey, I am right there with you. Get you away from true crime. You became an irritating encyclopedia. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I tend to do the same thing. And it's how I find out about some of these people. But any true crime I do after today, I'm dedicated to putting it in a separate there's a separate live stream that I'm going to do will just be on that, or just an actual video that I'm just doing and posting, and everything will be under that separate playlist so that you can, go to that material or stay away from it as you choose, because I don't want to have to chase anybody off in our regular chat. But I know sometimes that, it occurs even then, we deal with difficult topics sometimes, and you never know if it strikes you. And if it does, definitely step out. So Mark Bent was older. I'm going to say I think he was in his mid 50s when he was arrested. This was in South LA, in low socioeconomic area. And one of the commentators I was listening to who was going over this story, that was one of his points, is that these types of schools are magnets for pedos because, what do we talk about with grooming? What is the perpetrator looking for? They're looking for the kid who's isolated, who's alone, who doesn't have a good support system, single family homes. What better area than a poor, gang filled neighborhood? Then are you going to find vulnerable people, vulnerable kids? So it's almost like trick or treat. And it's horrible to say it that way, but it is. It's the reality. I believe, I need to double check this, and that's why I'm just kind of talking to you guys off the cuff about this. After he was arrested, I'm not sure how soon it was after, but there was a second teacher who was arrested for same thing, different types of acts, but same child abuse. After that, the school system basically shut down and they shoved everybody to different places, and then they did a top to bottom review of the school, of all the teachers. This is my understanding. And in the end, they let 87 teachers go from their school system. 87. And that's one of the things that burns me, Mock. Mock says, who are you going to believe, the poor child of color over a teacher? This particular area, I think, was mainly Hispanic. They mentioned that, but pick any minority, even if it's a mixed, But when they dug into the background a little bit, and some of the victims started coming forward and they said, well, I did complain. I did say something to the, school administrator or the principal or whoever it was. And they were told to stop making up lies about their teacher and to get back to class. That makes my heart hurt. This is why education is so critical. And thankfully, the schools have gotten the message. Whether or not they believe it and are carrying it through, especially in some of these areas that are more predator prone, I don't know. And again, the education for the children, because what was happening was he was doing things during the school day because he made it into a game. And one of the things that he would do is the top students of the week, or the performers of the week or of the day, or, I'm not sure, whatever he chose, got to play with him. And I'm not sure if they just brought up in front of the class and the class just watched as this happened, or if it was during recess that they did it. I don't know, but and their clothes were all on. Okay, so there's nothing that I'm going to be discussing that would have anything to do with body parts and clothes off with the children. So let me just bring that out right now. But he would bind and gag them and take pictures. And this was still back in the day where you could hand your pictures, your film, into the local drugstore, and they would develop them, and you pick them up, right? Well, some developer saw this with the class, counted 34 different kids, obviously called the police, and that's how this guy was caught. I don't know if you just think you're invincible at that point, or you think that you can come up with a good enough cover story for the pictures. That's a real hard one to explain away. He did some other inappropriate things with his bodily fluids, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll if I do this as a separate video, I might go more into detail in regards to some of his acts, but just based on that, on the surface of what I'm telling you, if he was just bringing cookies for the class, an educated class would have no reason to think that weird. If your teacher offers you a spoon with something on it and says, "Here, do you want to try this?" The answer should be no, because there's nothing that teacher should be offering you. There just isn't. Food does not happen in the classroom anymore. So if somebody asks to bind you up, even in play, an adult, no. But these are third graders. They're still young enough where, these things can be passed off as, hero and, savior and victim, or whatever they were playing, who knows? And the kids are young enough that they're not going to, I wonder why an adult wants to play this, But it was such knowledge amongst the kids, and it was such a big deal that some of them, they said that when they weren't chosen, they feel bad, they feel left out because they were never good enough to be able to be tied up too. It just it goes to show you the level of education of sexual predation, because those kids who did tell and were told not to tell lies, they should be going to another teacher. They should be going to the head of their religious institution. They should be going to a parent. They should be going to somebody else. That's the one thing we have to keep telling our kids is you keep telling until somebody believes you. Even if it happens to be the clerk at the store, you keep telling until somebody takes you seriously. And I think that, it goes for anybody, but doubling when it's your teacher, right? Because they're abusing your trust, and to abuse that many kids, oh my God, I think of this, how long this guy has been there. He was there, I think they said around 20 years, maybe not quite 20 years before the first complaint came through. But that still makes me wonder how many years before that did he start? Or, did he start grooming? So I do want to do a little bit more research and see if I can find some more on this guy versus just a few news stories and a couple of snippets from the actual news there, but they were short real news stories, just a clip on him. And I follow this up a little bit with some of the things that the students had said. So that's what I want to focus on when I talk about this, is if I'm talking about the abuser, I'm going to be speaking about his process, about how did he do this? How did he get away with this? What information should the kids have had? Should the parents have had? Should the education system have had? What should they have done? What did they do wrong? These are the types of things that I want to be discussing when we discuss these cases. I'm not getting into these cases so that we can talk about what a weirdo he is and everything else you want to say about him, and get into all the details of the weird things that he did to these kids. What can we learn? What hopefully has some of the school systems learned. If nothing else, I hope it's that they believe their children, that they take it seriously when a kid reports. And the unfortunate thing is, I know not all schools do. And I wish to heck that could change. And all I can do is hope that it's going to keep changing, as the years go on, as the generations go on, as we learn more things, as hopefully the education gets broader in this. Yeah, Crystal, he could have brought it up as learning, as play. Who knows? Maybe the not making, they learned math somehow. I no idea. But if you had, say, 30 kids in a classroom, and I think at that time, probably 30 to 35 in an inner city school would have been realistic. If you had that many kids talking to their brothers, their sisters, their parents, the school, if you get that many kids talking, they have to take it seriously. Have to. And if that many people got talking about it, I'm sure that it would, leak out into the community. And if the school's not going to do anything, that's when you take it to the media. Or, take it directly to the police first. You don't want to convict anybody in the media beforehand. But if no one is going to take you seriously, sometimes that might be, a thing of last resort. Hopefully, if you bring it directly to the police, that they're going to believe you. Excuse me. I know we can't always, rely on that, but we sure darn hope for. That's frightening, Crystal. And I have every belief that that is 100% true. Statistics for each predator is approximately 95 victims before they're caught. Or think of 95 instances of abuse against a particular child. Exactly, Janet. A lot of the churches, I won't say a lot, but I know the Church of Latter-day Saints, I know the Catholic Church have had, huge suits against them for knowing about systemic abuse and sweeping it under the rug and not doing anything about it. And in some instances, blaming the victims for anything bad that did happen to them, kind of like, Scientology does. And it's one of the reasons that that I want to do more on this North Fox Island, because connected with this in the network, the broader network, were many dioceses that they had in this pedofilm network, pornography network, and how that got all started. And it really got going in the 70s. And how did that happen? That's kind of a real interesting area, I think, to explore as well, that I want to look at. But you had these people who were either in the church itself, or they were at like a Catholic school, so St. Andrews, or whatever. Excuse me. And And so they believed that even though it was weird that they thought that it was weird that their teacher would touch them that often or whatever, they're like, you know, we're in the Catholic school, they wouldn't hire anybody bad. There would be nobody bad in our school. Everybody's good, It's this Catholic school. And I listened to several of the survivors who said that. They just thought they must have been making a bigger deal out of something than it was, because we want that to be for our teachers in general, don't we? No matter where they are. Mark says, my dad said something as a teacher, if I would even consider dating within my students' age range. How can any parent trust me with their kids when you're dating the students directly after school? Good point. Very good point. I gotta imagine a lot of teachers these days, they wouldn't, how difficult it would be to have a one-on-one relationship with any student. I mean, I remember back when I was in grade school, and it was common. It wasn't that the teacher picked out their teacher's pet, but generally there was a student who either needed more help or just connected with that teacher or whatever. And I had that as my sixth grade teacher, and she gave me lots of literature things to read, and really gave me a lot of tips in English, and really helped me become the writer that I eventually became. And it, I can't imagine stuff like that happening today. Just staying afterwards and talking to her for 10 minutes in an empty classroom after school let out. I gotta imagine there's some teachers nowadays that are probably nervous even about that. It's scary. Oh, geez, Mark. Boys, a boys' boarding school in town was a cesspool of abuse until about 10 years before you went there. Well, I was glad it was before you went there. Yeah, boarding schools, homes, youth homes, just all. The predators go where the prey is. And that's why we, when it comes to our youth, we've got to be doubly careful about making sure we know who the people are that are working directly with our kids. So that does mean, in my opinion, stiff background checks. And I would like, if it was teacher, a federal check and a state check, and maybe a check of some of the states that surround your state that you're in. I mean, broaden your net a little bit. See, and Crystal here on the opposite end, a couple of teachers who literally saved your life. So there are still good people out there, right? And those are the ones we want to focus on, and that we want our kids to come into contact with. And you hope that the person they tell will be somebody who gives them a chance, and believes in them and takes them seriously and tries to do something about it. Exactly, Janet. You went for special help with your math teacher alone all the time. Nothing ever happened other than learning math, but it would have been the perfect opportunity for a predator. Same for me. Like when I would stay in at recess, because I'd get bullied at recess. So I wanted to stay in and just read my book in the classroom. And there were a lot of times where I was allowed. Now, yeah, would have been the perfect time for someone to groom me. But it never happened in that particular circumstance. But I know that it's happened to thousands of kids. Yeah, I think the more people in the community who know each other, definitely the more complicated it would be, when multiple people start speaking up about it. And that's why it's just so critical that we educate our kids, because say even 10% of those kids, so, 3 kids, 6 kids complained. That's a lot. I mean, if you go 6, well, so 6 out of 30, it should be 0. So if you've got 6 kids all saying the same thing, I think maybe you got something to look into. Maybe stroll by the classroom every once in a while and see what's going on. It wouldn't take much to check out and verify. That's the thing. And you're doing this during class time for how many years? You tell me that the other teachers did not know about it? I just can't believe that. I can't believe that this would go on in his classroom for that long and none of the other teachers were aware of it. Now we do know one other, because they were both friends, the guy who got arrested about a year or so later, who was also a pedo. So it makes sense he knew about it. But and the poor girl who complained and got transferred out. She said, well, if you're not going to take me seriously, at least, get me out of here, transfer me out. So I don't know what kind of involvement her parents had with it, but they at least transferred her out of his classroom, Mark Bent's classroom, right into the other guy's classroom, out of the frying pan, into the fire. It's like, poor kid, you can't win for losing. Because then if you complain that that teacher is also doing something inappropriate, well, if they didn't believe you the first time, they certainly are not going to believe you the second time, right? I mean, because what are the chances? What are the chances of having 1, 2? I don't know of those 87 people, and I believe this is how the story went. So if I get the details wrong, I'll definitely correct them next time I talk. But I wonder how many were actually from that elementary school out of the district. That makes me wonder. I don't know how many schools were actually in the district either. How they were counting that, but still, that's one too many. One too many. So yeah, there's cases like this. Though, when I hear about it, I shake my head from an education standpoint, from believe our children's standpoint, from when people say stuff like this, especially when you've got children who are being very descriptive in what's happened, they wouldn't make that up. They don't have the knowledge to make that up. Again, it's depending on what age, but we're talking elementary school here. Most of those kids aren't going to have the knowledge base. And what kid's going to think of bondage? Yeah, he ties me up and puts a gag in my mouth. Well, I mean, of all the things you're going to accuse the kid, oh yeah, and he does it right during class. Ask any of the other kids. See, that's what I don't get. It would be as easy as bringing those kids into the office one by one. You'd have to call the parents, which is probably what they didn't want to do, because they didn't want to alert anybody. But just to ask the children, has this happened to you too? And I guarantee a few more of them would have said yes, would have had the balls to say yes. You get even one verifier There's no excuse for not acting. Wow, that is weird, Mark. Yeah, it's strange when teachers start dating students. My couple years ahead of me, the football coach quit, and I think he was a teacher of something else. Um, but he essentially moved cities because one of his students was going to college, and so he was like in the dorm room every weekend, and the news of it, kind of got back to the school. Would be a little strange. Yes, this is my teacher from last year. He's here dating my roommate. Very strange. I have not seen that film, Janet. This film's called Spotlight, about the Boston Globe's groundbreaking investigation into the abuses in the Boston area Catholic churches. I have not seen that, but I do need to put it on my list. I was just listening today about a documentary that came out in the late 60s, and it was essentially banned. And, the guy went to court and it was censored. And it was a documentary on one of the state hospitals. And it was Bridgewater State Hospital, and I forget what state it was in. But he pretty much had full access. He thinks they may have been told to be on their best behavior, which is frightening considering what was filmed. And it's just such a shame that it was buried, because if people would have known sooner, maybe something would have happened. I think it was not until the early 80s, where like 8 people died in a year, that they finally said, that seems like a lot. Maybe we should investigate. Yeah. The teacher, the first date was the prom. Okay. Yikes. Yeah, I will watch that sometime. Maybe when my roommate gets back, if he's willing to watch it with me. It was with Michael Keaton. Got it. It yeah, there's so much that I want to explore from a true crime avenue, but looking at it differently. And obviously the details need to be discussed, just because we need to understand what types of things, if somebody was disclosing, what were they disclosing? What were they telling people? How old were they when they were saying these things? When you get, I don't want to get too into it, but when you get kids describing certain things, they're describing it as best as they can with their little 8-year-old brains. It's pretty easy for an adult to go, okay, I get what it was. It doesn't take a huge leap. Oh, you've seen it, Mark? Spotlight? Have a happy dinner, Janet. Take care. Okay. Well, guys, it's been about an hour now. I think I'm gonna start to wrap this up here. I noticed how far down my head is in this window today. Just gonna kind of sinking, I think, as we've gone. Um, so I promise Saturday we are going to discuss mushrooms and psilocybin and depression. I have all my research already printed out. I just need to kind of go through it, make sure kind of what order I'm going to present it to you guys, but do have it all. I do have it all together. So it's not a matter of not having the information to give to you. I do have it. I just could not get my brain around it for tonight. But I'm going to take some breaths and I'm going to do some meditation and I'm going to get my head in the right space so that I don't miss anything more. I've been healing through a lot and dealing trying to get some of those things that I know that I don't handle well better. And in some things I'm doing well, and some things I'm still having a challenge. I'll tell you, having my bestie as a roommate, even for the few days that it was before he took off again, I think it's going to be really good. We're going to have our head butts. I have no question about that, right? But for the most part, I think it's going to be pretty good. And my son's giving it the double thumbs up as well, so I'm happy with that. So be good to have him back this weekend. But I will definitely see you guys on Saturday. I said depending, I might start an hour earlier. I might start at 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Don't plan on it unless you see an announcement of the live and you see the time there. And I'll put time change as well if I do a time change on it. Otherwise, just 3 o'clock, just like we normally are. Just thought I might do that just to. Hey, Rick. Oh, thanks. Good. Well, I'm glad you got something out of it. I know it wasn't exactly what I was going to talk about, but definitely doing that on Saturday. So please come back Saturday. And I thank you all. You're so supportive, and I'm just very grateful for you and for the support that you give me. You're here for me no matter what, and that means the world to me. And if that tells you nothing else, that should say it all to you. If you're just here as a member of the community hanging out, that should tell you what these people are all about. It's a great group of people who are incredibly supportive of each and every one of us who are in this community. We aimed for this to be a truly safe space for all trauma survivors to be supported and to heal. Sometimes that's dealing with your stuff, and other times it isn't. But that'll do it for me for today. So thank you guys for listening to me, at least the things I had to bring up today. I know they were kind of. Oh, you knew about Carla too, Rick? Yeah, there's some interesting ones out there. And especially when you start talking about people being back out in society again, it just kind of makes you pause and go, and when you get second chances involved in there, and do we, yeah, it can get tough. It can get tough. I remember hearing about that was your town, Rick? No way. Whoa. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I'm amazed. I hope your town is recovering. That's just got to be, and oh my gosh, that's got to be incredible. Hi, Crystal. How are you doing? We have Crystal Phoenix and a Crystal. That's wonderful. It's so good to see you tonight. Rick, I hope your town is healing. I wonder how it reacted when she got released. And is she still in your town? That was, I should have asked you guys that earlier. That's wow. Again, it happens somewhere, right? I'm just always amazed when things have Michigan headlines. I was looking through some true crime stuff, and it was like the Michigan murders, the Ypsilanti Ripper, or something like that. And I'm like, which is over by Detroit. It's on the east side. It's the opposite side for me. She's in Quebec. Okay. Wow. Interesting. So Crystal says she did talk to her Asian friends about the generational trauma effects of World War II, and it was a mixed bag. It makes me wonder if the ones who didn't think that either they had it or that they saw it, if it was there and it was just they didn't recognize it. It could be that it's not. I mean, just as we get different genes passed down to us, which gives, me green eyes and my brother more bluish eyes. So could we get the different pieces that pass down that trauma, right? Just in terms of the genetic aspect of it. But then you've got the whole nurture aspect, and that can be different for siblings too. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. That in Cali, it was California. It didn't matter if you're Japanese or not, it was just Asian. Easier for the authorities, right? Oh, wow, Rick. So she hit her transport too. Wow. Definitely will have a warning on the top of that one if I ever cover anything with Homolka again. Josh. Mark, you had a bad hostage situation. Oh, a forensic psychology in the town of your boarding schools, and they have their scars. I bet. I bet. I mean, for any town, no matter how large or small, when it comes down to it, if it's, say we go Detroit, well, there's lots of pieces of Detroit, right? So those smaller areas, those townships, they have very much individually have an identity there. And I can imagine that even for the big cities, it's those smaller areas would feel it just as much as a small town would. So to have it be a collective scar, and also hence have the possibility for the generational trauma as well, which is just, I know that my town has had a few things, but I don't remember. or nothing. I mean, nothing huge, major sticks out to me. Um, yeah, I'd agree with you, Crystal. On the whole, a small town can hold trauma longer. Um, I think in general, there's not as much turnover, so you have people with longer memories who are going to be there with small towns. I would say on the whole, that's for a reason with that. Huh. Okay. Anyway, so my promise is that true crime will be under a separate playlist. And from now on, if I'm going to cover anything, I'm going to do it under that separate cover. And if I do a live, it's going to be probably a different day, like a different day, different time. I've been talking about kind of doing another one anyway, so maybe that would be my other live, would be about true crime on some program or another, or some case or another, I should say. Um, Comment if you think that's a good idea. Comment if you would tune in on a separate day to listen to some of these cases. And again, I try as much as possible to speak about the offenses in a very respectful way, considering the victims, whether they were ultimate victims or whether they ended up being survivors. Because again, it's what can we do to avoid this situation is where my focus is with these. So don't need the backstory of the perpetrator, don't need to know what his early life was like. We're going to be focusing, we'll be focusing, differently. And I don't know, sometimes there may be cases where it's going to be hard to come up with any more information than just the salacious, details sometimes that get released, which is unfortunate, because what are we learning from it? That should be, when we have news stories, that should be the thrust of this. When they bring it out, when it's said and done, it should be, okay, what can we learn from this? What do we need to be telling our kids? What do we need to be looking for in the educational systems, instead of, okay, he was sentenced today, he's off. Next story. It has such power to, especially when it's, after something like that, to rally people, to talk about these things and to see if they can't fix some things that are wrong with the system, or have some people rise to the top to be able to be the educators, on the issue. So those are kind of my, Crystal, I know exactly how you feel watching Law and Order SVU, because it made you feel like you weren't alone. And there's other people in the universe that this happens to, right? Yeah, I'd watch that all the time too. I haven't had a TV, I think, in like 7-8 years. Mark, you've researched the Australian Catholic Church child abuse situation. Is this something that is still going on now? Meaning, like, it's still in the news now, or was this something that has resolved itself, quote unquote? Like the payouts have already been given and the lawsuits have already been brought. Because that would definitely be interesting, because you've got the Irish Catholic Church. I know, yeah, you've got Boston, and then there was one in California, I think, that was a big whoop-de-doo too. And in Australia, I mean, talk about pervasive. And that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother thing to discuss is, and I'm not sure, I don't think it touches on religion itself, just the whole concept of um, the celibacy. Are you breeding pedos? I don't know. Part of me just wants to say that if somebody doesn't have an inclination towards that there's just not having sex themselves is going to turn them towards whatever's closest and easiest. I guess I just don't want to believe that our sexual drive is so animalistic that if we deprive ourselves, we're going to eventually take advantage of whoever's closest to us that we see as the most easiest prey. Mainly because SA is about power and control. It's not about the sex act per se, right? So it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, by doing what they did, by shuffling them around, they certainly did no one any favors. And that's again, yeah, it comes about in terms of whatever the organization is, they don't want to risk the bad publicity. They don't want to have to deal with it. So they deal with it internally. And it is always not enough. Some of these priests were sent off to recondition camps or something. I don't know, it was a place where they were just all together, everyone who was getting kicked out of their organization. And then once they were better, they would assign them to a new congregation. So 100%, absolutely right, Crystal and Crystal. It's SA is about power and control. The sex act is the means to the end. What better way to have the ultimate in power and control over somebody than either SA or than the ultimate murder, right? Makes me wonder if the Vatican files have an archive of every priest who ever went to that place. I mean, they pulled, like with Boston, they pulled a bunch of records, right? And they were able to find out complaints. So they did keep records, and at the local level. So I wonder what the report up system was like there. That would be interesting. Be very interesting. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for me. I've been babbling on for about 20 minutes now. I'm going to get some rest. I got an early morning tomorrow, probably a 12-hour shift. So, right, Mock. They archive their connections with the Nazis. They have records. I bet they do. I bet they do. God, what a field day that would be to have access to the papal archives. Books going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Notes from Pope Pius. Like, in his book. I mean, that would just be so wild. God, you do wonder what secrets they're hiding in there, if they are any. I don't know. But that's hundreds of years worth of history that would just be fascinating to go through. All right, everyone, that's it for tonight. I will definitely see you on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We definitely will be talking about depression and psilocybin, so I'll be transferring this title over to Saturdays. Thanks for sticking with me today and going through what we did. You have any suggestions or need to contact me for any reason, survivingtogethersass@gmail.com. If it's not in the description below here, it's in every other video description you'll be able to find it in, if you ever need to find it. Hey, Carry On, I'm signing off. So you're back just in time to say goodbye to everybody. I was babbling for about 20 minutes. So please remember that you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are strong because you're a survivor. But most of all, you're loved for who you are, just the way you are. Hugs and love. Mwah. Bye, guys. See you Saturday.